big economic decisions. Demonetization, goods and services tax, Jan Dhan Aadhar, corporate tax cut, PSU bank mergers and asset monetization. Many believe our banks are in far better health than they were 9 years ago, and give a thumbs up to the Modi government for that. Jan Dhan Aadhar reaching out to millions of people, having bank accounts is seen as a huge positive. Therefore, Professor Gowda, how do you see this big question? Has the Indian economy realized its potential given these major disruptive decisions that the Prime Minister has taken?
So let's just take private investment, right? Once the corporate tax cuts came in, it cost the exchequer 1,45,000 crores in foregone revenues. And what was the result? Has private investment picked up after that? Absolutely not. Private investment used to be 25% of GDP in the second half of UPA 2. It's now below 20%. Now, further, what happened to the share of manufacturing in the economy? It's come down to about 14% or so. This is not what it means to have a modern economy realizing its potential. And of course, amongst the other great decisions that were made, demonetization, everyone knows what a disaster that was, and we're still paying the price. Now, take another. This is, for example, the asset monetization. Really? Has there been, every budget they would announce these mega numbers which they would aim to achieve through disinvestment, and none of them have actually come true. And many announcements of PSUs that were supposed to be privatized never did happen because the government neither was able to push those through, nor were people willing to come forward and purchase them. You ended up having sleight of hand where one government entity bought another. And of course, PSU bank mergers have not necessarily resulted in some mega transformation of banks. Maybe weaker ones have been salvaged, but you haven't seen extraordinary efficiencies. A lot of non-performing loans have been essentially written off. And so that's why the banks' books are looking a little better.
But you concede the banks are in better health today than they were 9 years ago, yes or no?
Because you've written off a whole huge chunk of NPAs.
It is because of over 10 trillion rupees of write-offs to the crony capitalists who are funding the BJP. You think that is a good reform?
Mr. Prasanjit Bose, the Modi government says these are part of larger structural reforms. What they are doing is formalizing what's been an informal economy. There has been some pain as a result, but they believe 10, 15 years from now, India therefore will be in a far better place. Tax collections are up, and if this continues in this manner, we will eventually be one of the largest economies in the world in 2030.
No, Rajdeep, I was first responding to the point about, the health of the banks. And the health of the banks, as Mr. Gowda correctly pointed out, it has got nothing to do with any improvement in their actual financial performance or the improvement in the economy. It is because of over 10 trillion rupees of NPAs, which are corporate loan defaults, which have been written off the books of the banks, and that is why their profitability has been artificially showed up. In fact, the bank mergers have been done just to inflate the balance sheet so that this can be done. The CAG has tried to point out to this, and as is the process under this government, any critical point which any institution from within the institution, whenever it comes, it gets buried.
No, but so when our forex reserves are higher, you will say when FDI has increased, when physical infrastructure, whether it's roads, whether it's power is increasing, are you going to say none of that deserves any credit?
Listen, I don't think that it's a question of nothing. If you are asking me to be saying that, if you point out at least in one good thing, I think the Jan Dhan Yojana was a good thing which the government did. It certainly expanded financial inclusion. But the point is that when you make an evaluation of the government, it's not about this, one Ujjwala Yojana or one PM Kisan or one Jan Dhan Yojana. It is about the overall picture. And Mr. Bhalla, he is not contesting the fact that, that India's growth rate has declined. You should compare the Modi regime with the previous one, especially with UPA 1. which I think in the post-liberalization, it was the best growth performance in the past 30 years. You compare that. Compare the Modi government's regime with that period, with the
Okay, can I just ask,